Oh, brilliant. Just absolutely brilliant. Here I am, Vex Kalo, sitting in my command pod aboard the flagship Triumphant Reckoning, watching the holographic display of what should have been the easiest conquest in galactic history. Should have been. Past tense. Because apparently nobody bothered to actually study these humans beyond their pathetic technological level and their adorable little blue marble of a planet. Commander Vex Kalo, my second-in-command, Ziltan, practically vibrated with excitement. The war declaration has been broadcast across all frequencies. Earth should be surrendering any moment now. I leaned back in my bio-formed chair, all 6 of my eyes rolling simultaneously. Ziltan, my dear, sweet, naive subordinate, have you actually looked at the response patterns from Earth? The younger officer's tentacles fluttered nervously. Well, no, sir. I assumed they would follow standard protocol. Panic, government collapse, immediate surrender. The usual, standard protocol. I pulled up the communications array with a gesture, and suddenly the bridge filled with the most bizarre collection of sounds I had ever encountered in my 300 years of military service. Laughter. Not the nervous, terrified giggling of a doomed species, mind you. Full-throated, belly shaking, tears streaming down faces laughter. Sir, came the trembling voice of our communications specialist, Chinmora. They're laughing at us. Yes, Chinmora, I can hear that. The question is why. I gestured for the audio to be enhanced. What came through our speakers next made my scales stand on end. A human voice, clearly transmitted from what their primitive systems called television, was speaking in their dominant language. Our universal translators worked overtime. Folks, you're not going to believe this. Some aliens just declared war on Earth. I kid you not. They sent us a 47-page document detailing our inevitable surrender and the futility of resistance. 47 pages. I haven't seen paperwork this long since my divorce. More laughter, torrents of it. The human continued. They want us to submit to the mighty hegemony of Kelvorth and accept our fate as a conquered tributary species. Oh, and get this. They've given us 72 hours to comply, or they'll demonstrate their superior firepower on one of our major cities. Sir, Ziltan whispered, perhaps they haven't fully processed the situation yet. Shock can manifest in many ways. I held up one clawed appendage for silence. The human was still talking. Now, I don't know about you fine people, but when someone threatens to blow up one of our cities, well, that just sounds like they're asking for a good old-fashioned American welcome party. And you know what we bring to parties, folks. The crowd erupted again. I found myself leaning forward, genuinely curious about what exactly humans brought to parties. Guns, someone shouted from the audience. Lots and lots of guns. Beer, came another voice. Explosives, more guns, and spite. This last voice carried particularly well. Don't forget the spite. I blinked all 6 eyes in sequence, a nervous habit I'd developed over the years. Chinmora, are these responses typical across their communication networks? The communications officer's voice cracked slightly. Commander, I've monitored 17 different broadcast sources in the last hour. They're all similar. Some are making jokes. Others are placing bets on how long we'll last. One group is apparently organizing something called a welcoming committee and discussing the best ways to what, Chinmora? To turn alien invaders into lawn decorations, sir. The bridge fell silent except for the continued sounds of human merriment from our speakers. I stood up, my full height causing several junior officers to step back. This was not going according to any plan in our military handbooks. "Tactical analysis," I commanded. "Brenkoth, what's our assessment of their defensive capabilities?" My tactical officer, a particularly literal-minded member of our species, consulted his displays. "Sir, their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical propulsion rockets with primitive guidance systems. Their military uses projectile weapons that fire small metal slugs. Their largest explosive devices are fusion-based, but crude. By our standards, they shouldn't pose any threat to our shields." "Shouldn't," I repeated. There was something about that word that made my digestive acids churn. And yet, something feels wrong. Pull up detailed scans of their major population centers. The holographic display shimmered and revealed images of Earth's cities. What I saw made me pause. These weren't the panicked masses of a doomed civilization. These were preparations. Humans were moving with purpose, organizing with efficiency that seemed almost impossible for such a primitive species. "Brenkoth, magnify Sector 77 Alpha." The image zoomed in on what the humans called Texas. I watched in growing bewilderment as thousands of humans poured out of buildings carrying— I had to check the translation matrix twice. Are those projectile weapons?" "Yes, sir. Thousands of them. Our sensors detect a wide variety of chemical propulsion, small arms. Also, sir." "What is it, Brenkoth?" "Sir, they appear to be bringing their young to watch." I stared at the display. Sure enough, small human offspring were present, many holding smaller versions of the projectile weapons. They weren't evacuating. They weren't hiding. They were gathering. And they were armed. All of them. "Communications! Get me a direct link to their government." "Sir, which government?" "They have 195 separate political entities. The largest one, the most powerful." "That would be the United States of America, sir. Patching through now." A human face appeared on the main screen. Male, middle-aged, with what our anthropological database indicated was a confident expression. Behind him, I could see more humans moving with that same purposeful energy. "Greetings, alien visitors," the human said, and I could swear there was amusement in his voice. "This is President Mitchell Kane of the United States. I understand you've declared war on Earth." "That is correct, human. I am Commander Vex Kalo of the Hegemony of Kelvorth. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will demonstrate our superior firepower." President Kane nodded slowly, then did something that made my blood freeze. He smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a diplomatic smile. A smile that reminded me of the predators from my home world just before they struck. "Commander Vex Kalo, I appreciate you taking the time to call. I have just one question before we proceed." "What is your question, human?" "How many of your ships did you bring?" The question was so unexpected that I answered without thinking. "Our initial assault fleet consists of 57 heavy cruisers, 234 destroyers, and over 400 support vessels. More than sufficient to handle any resistance your primitive world might offer." President Kane's smile grew wider. "And how many soldiers?" 2.7 million combat troops, with an additional 8 million support personnel." "I see. And you're planning to conquer Earth with this force?" "Correct. Your surrender will spare your species unnecessary suffering." The human president glanced at something off-screen, then looked back at me. "Commander, I just got off the phone with my military advisors. Would you like to know how many humans have volunteered to fight in the last 3 hours?" I felt a cold sensation in my primary stomach. "How many?" 243 million. And that's just in my country. The Chinese called 20 minutes ago. They've got 800 million volunteers. Russia's offering 400 million. Actually, Commander, we might have a bit of a problem. What kind of problem? We're running out of ways to register volunteers. Our systems weren't designed for this kind of response. Oh, and the gun stores are reporting shortages. Apparently, a lot of folks decided today was a good day to upgrade their arsenals. I looked around my bridge. Every officer was staring at the display with expressions that ranged from confusion to outright terror. "Sir," Brenkoth whispered, "our intelligence reports indicated Earth's total military personnel at approximately 65 million across all nations." President Kane must have heard him because he chuckled. "Oh, that's just our professional military. Commander, I don't think your intelligence briefing included some important information about humans." "Such as?" "We don't really make a distinction between military and civilian when someone threatens our home. Every American citizen is guaranteed the right to keep and bear arms. Most of us exercise that right enthusiastically. The same goes for quite a few other countries." I felt my confidence beginning to crack. "Human Kane, you are still technologically inferior. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields." "Maybe not individually," Kane agreed. "But Commander, here's something else your intelligence probably missed. Americans alone fire approximately 12 billion rounds of ammunition every year, just for practice, for fun. Now, we've been making ammunition for over a century, and we're really, really good at it. What does that have to do with anything?" "Well, sir, even if our bullets can't get through your shields individually, I'm curious what happens when 12 billion of them hit those shields simultaneously. Per day. For as long as this takes." The bridge was deadly quiet now. I could hear my own breathing apparatus working overtime. "Furthermore," Kane continued, "I should mention that we've been preparing for hostile alien contact for decades. Science fiction is extremely popular here. We've run every possible scenario, multiple times, in books, movies, games, you name it. We've been thinking about this exact situation for generations. That's fiction. Entertainment. Sure is. And do you know what the most popular outcome is in our alien invasion stories, Commander?" I was afraid to ask, but I did anyway. "What?" "The aliens lose every single time, because they always make the same mistake." "What mistake?" President Kane's expression grew serious, and for the first time since this conversation began, I saw what I thought might be genuine pity in his eyes. "They underestimate humans, Commander. They see our technology level and assume that's all we are. They don't understand that our greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our absolute, bone-deep refusal to give up. Ever. We're the species that looked at the most dangerous predators on our planet and decided to make them into pets. We're the species that figured out how to fly by watching birds and then built machines that could go to the moon. We split the atom, Commander. We harnessed the power of stars." He paused, and I could hear activity in the background of his transmission. Lots of activity. "We're also the species that spent the last century perfecting the art of warfare. 2 global conflicts taught us things about killing that I hope your species never has to learn. And, Commander? Yes? We're really, really good at it." The transmission cut out, leaving my bridge in stunned silence. Outside the viewports, Earth hung in space like a blue-white marble, peaceful and serene. But now I knew better. Now I could see it for what it really was. A predator's den. And we'd just knocked on the door. "Sir," Chinmora's voice was barely audible, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures across the planet. They're powering up Everything they have. Sir, Brenkoth added, his voice shaking, I'm reading launch signatures. Thousands of them. Their rockets are lifting off from every continent. I watched the tactical display as hundreds of primitive human rockets climbed toward our fleet. They were crude, yes, slow by our standards. But there were so very many of them. Shields to maximum, I ordered. All weapons online. Combat alert throughout the fleet. As the first human rockets reached our outer perimeter, I found myself thinking about President Kane's words. We'd made the same mistake as every fictional alien invasion force in human entertainment. We'd underestimated them. And if their entertainment was any indication, that was always a fatal mistake. The first explosions bloomed against our shields like deadly flowers, and I realized with growing horror that this was just the beginning. The humans were just getting started. 24 hours later, I was questioning every life choice that had led me to this moment. My beautiful fleet, the pride of the hegemony, now resembled a collection of damaged toys floating in the void. And the humans? Oh, the humans were just warming up. Damage report, I croaked, my voice hoarse from 12 hours of constant shouting. Sir, Brenkoth consulted his rapidly flickering displays. We've lost 17 destroyers, 4 heavy cruisers, and... Well, sir, the humans appear to have somehow stolen 3 of our support vessels. Stolen? How does one steal a starship? Apparently, sir, they use their primitive rockets to ram boarding parties onto the ships. Then well, the recordings are quite disturbing, sir. I gestured weakly for him to continue. They introduced something called coffee to our crews, engaged them in friendly conversation about Earth culture, and somehow convinced 47 of our officers to defect. The humans are now broadcasting cooking shows from the stolen vessels. My head tentacles began twitching uncontrollably. Cooking shows? Yes, sir. Apparently, Subcommander Rick Svell has discovered something called barbecue and is teaching other species how to prepare it. The shows are extremely popular across the galaxy. Our own crews have been requesting permission to tune in. I buried my face in my claws. Through the bridge speakers, I could hear the ongoing human communications, which had evolved from simple laughter to something far more terrifying. Organized enthusiasm. This is General Sarah Martinez, United States Army. All civilian volunteers, please maintain orderly lines at the registration stations. We have enough alien targets for everyone, I promise. Ziltan, I called to my second-in-command, who was huddled in the corner reviewing what appeared to be human military history texts. Status of the ground invasion force? Ziltan looked up with the expression of someone who'd seen too much. Sir, perhaps we should reconsider the ground assault entirely. Explain. Sir, I've been studying their military conflicts. These humans have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They've refined warfare into an art form. They have terms for things we don't even have concepts for. They call it asymmetric warfare, guerrilla tactics, urban combat doctrine. Sir, they have a saying, every American behind every blade of grass. What does that mean? It means, sir, that they have approximately 400 million firearms in civilian hands, 1 for every adult human, with plenty left over. And, sir, they've been using these weapons since childhood, for sport, for fun, for hunting creatures that could easily kill them. Through the viewport, I watched as more human rockets approached our position. These weren't the crude missiles from yesterday. These were different, larger, more sophisticated. Sir, Chin Mora practically shrieked from her station. The rockets aren't carrying explosives. Then what are they carrying? Humans, sir. Living humans, in atmospheric suits. They're boarding us again. I watched in fascination and horror as the human boarding craft attached themselves to our hull like parasites. Within minutes, I could hear banging sounds echoing through the ship's corridors. "Security teams to repel boarders," I commanded. "Sir," came the voice of our security chief over the communications system. "The humans brought something called pizza and are asking if we want to talk about ending hostilities peacefully. Also, they've somehow managed to repair our damaged power coupling in Section 7. Should we let them continue?" I stared at the communication panel in disbelief. "They're repairing our ship?" "Yes, sir. Apparently, one of them used to work on something called submarines and says our power systems are charmingly simple. They've also offered to upgrade our life support efficiency by 30%. The universe had officially stopped making sense. "Commander," came President Kane's voice over the main communication channel, "I hope you don't mind, but we've sent some technical specialists to help with your ship maintenance. Your crews mentioned they've been having some issues with power distribution." I activated the visual link, and President Kane's face appeared on the screen. Behind him, I could see what appeared to be a massive celebration in progress. "What do you want, human?" "Well, Commander, it's been about 30 hours since you declared war on us, and I thought we should check in. How are you holding up?" "You've disabled half my fleet." "Oh, that?" "Commander, we haven't even started fighting yet." "That was just our enthusiastic greeting. We're still waiting for our military to finish organizing." My blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "Well, you see, our actual military was a bit surprised by your arrival. It takes time to coordinate a proper response when you have armies spread across 7 continents. Plus, we had to set up manufacturing." "Manufacturing?" "Commander, did you really think we'd fight you with our current weapons? We've had 30 hours to design anti-alien warfare systems specifically for your technology. Our engineers are very creative when they're motivated." As if summoned by his words, new contacts began appearing on our sensors. Ships, hundreds of them. But these weren't the primitive rockets from yesterday. These were sleek, purpose-built craft rising from Earth's surface with signatures I didn't recognize. Brenkoth, analysis of the new contacts. "Sir, I don't understand what I'm seeing. These appear to be human craft, but the technology signatures are completely different from anything in our databases. They're using some kind of hybrid propulsion system." President Kane smiled that predator smile again. "Commander, I'd like you to meet the result of 30 hours of motivated human engineering. You see, we reverse-engineered some of your technology from the ships our boarding parties examined. Then we improved on it. Impossible. Your technology level, Commander, our technology level is exactly where it needs to be. We're very good at learning quickly when someone threatens our home. Very good indeed." The new human ships moved with impossible grace, forming attack formations that made my tactical officers gasp in admiration. These weren't the crude, chemical propulsion craft from yesterday. These were predators built for hunting. "Sir," Brenkoth whispered, "they've weaponized their learning curve." "Open a channel to the Hegemony High Command," I ordered. "Emergency priority." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the august presence of Supreme Admiral Kex Thorne, his ancient features stern with disapproval. "Commander Vex Kalo, your reports have been concerning. You assured us this would be a simple conquest." "Sir, with respect, our intelligence was fundamentally flawed. These humans are not a primitive species. They're a predator species that happens to be technologically young." "Explain." Sir, in 30 hours, they've gone from chemical rockets to hybrid drive warships. They've reversed engineered our technology and improved upon it. They've convinced 47 of our officers to defect using something called hospitality. And sir, they haven't actually started fighting yet. Supreme Admiral Kexthorne's expression grew skeptical. Commander, you're telling me that a primitive species has defeated the might of the hegemony? No, sir. I'm telling you that a predator species has been playing with us while they figured out how we work. And now they're bored. As if to emphasize my point, the human President Kane's voice filled the bridge again. Commander Vex Kalo, we've completed our preliminary assessment of your technology and military doctrine. We're ready to begin the actual war now, if you're still interested. Supreme Admiral Kexthorne leaned forward. Put me through to this human leader. President Kane's image appeared alongside the Supreme Admiral's. The human looked remarkably relaxed for someone whose planet was under invasion. Supreme Admiral Kexthorne, I presume. I'm President Mitchell Kane. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us. Human, you will order your forces to stand down immediately. The hegemony of Kelvorth does not negotiate with primitive species. President Kane's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Supreme Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We're not negotiating. We're giving you one chance to withdraw peacefully before we demonstrate why threatening Earth was a mistake. You dare threaten the hegemony? Sir, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm making a statement of fact. You declared war on us. We've spent 30 hours preparing our response. Would you like to see what human warfare actually looks like? The Supreme Admiral's features twisted with rage. Show us your worst, primitive. President Kane nodded slowly. As you wish. Admiral Martinez, you are authorized to commence Operation Welcome Wagon. The tactical display exploded with new contacts. Not hundreds of ships, thousands, tens of thousands, rising from every continent, every ocean, every hidden facility on Earth. Sir, Brenkoth's voice was barely a whisper. I count over 50,000 military-grade vessels, all using hybrid technology, all armed with weapons I don't recognize. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was the communication channels. Thousands of human voices coordinating with the precision of a species that had been preparing for this moment their entire evolutionary history. Bravo Squad! You have targets bearing 27 Mark IV. Light 'em up! Copy that, Control. Fox 1, Fox 2, Fox 3. Multiple hits on target. Charlie Wing, provide cover for the boarding teams. Let's keep this clean, people. President Kane watched our displays with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. Supreme Admiral, I should mention that what you're seeing represents about 10% of our prepared response. We learned long ago never to commit all our resources to a single engagement. Supreme Admiral Kexthorne stared at the tactical display as our mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by forces that hadn't existed yesterday. This is impossible, he breathed. No, sir, President Kane replied gently. This is humanity. We're the species that spent 1,000 years fighting each other and learned from every battle. We're the species that turned warfare into a science, strategy into an art form, and survival into an absolute imperative. He paused as another wave of human ships swept past our failing shields. We're also the species that never, ever gives up. Supreme Admiral, you made one critical error in your planning. What error? You assumed that because we were technologically primitive, We were militarily primitive. But, Supreme Admiral, we've been perfecting the art of war longer than your species has had spaceflight. We just hadn't had a reason to take it to the stars. The display showed our fleet in full retreat, human ships herding the survivors toward the outer system like sheepdogs managing a flock. Until now, Kane concluded. Supreme Admiral Kexthorn stared at the ruins of our invasion force, his expression cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally, something approaching respect. What do you want, human? Nothing from you, Supreme Admiral, but I want something for you. Which is? President Kane's smile returned, but now it held warmth instead of predatory anticipation. I want you to go home and tell the galaxy exactly what you've learned here. Tell them that Earth is inhabited by a species that greets war declarations with laughter and responds to threats by getting creative. And if we refuse, then you'll discover what human warfare looks like when we're not trying to be friendly about it. The communication ended, leaving my bridge in absolute silence. Around us, the scattered remains of the most powerful invasion fleet in hegemony history limped toward the system's edge, escorted by human ships that could have destroyed us all but chose not to. Sir, Ziltan asked quietly, what do we tell the High Command? I looked out at Earth, that deceptively peaceful blue marble, and shuddered. We tell them the truth, Ziltan. We tell them that we found a species that treats galactic conquest as a recreational activity. We tell them that we found predators who disguise themselves as prey until someone makes the mistake of threatening their home. I paused, watching as more human ships rose from the planet's surface. Even now, even after their overwhelming victory, they were still building, still preparing, still improving. And we tell them that if they're ever stupid enough to threaten humanity again, there won't be anyone left to make a report. As our crippled fleet fled toward the outer darkness, I could hear human laughter following us across the void. Not mocking laughter this time. The laughter of a species that had just discovered they weren't alone in the universe, and were absolutely delighted to make new friends, even if those friends had started the relationship by declaring war, especially then, because that's what humans do. They turn enemies into allies, challenges into opportunities, and war declarations into the galaxy's most entertaining welcoming party. The galaxy would never be quite the same again, and honestly, that was probably for the best.